All right, yeah, just let her know. Good. All right, welcome everyone to the December 5th, 2022 Math and Science Academy Board of Directors special meeting, with tonight talking through some expansion options. So, Noah, can you read the mission vision for us, please?
The vision is to be an innovative, sustainable model of academic excellence for all students that creates well-rounded, lifelong learners and global citizens. The mission is we provide accelerated and inclusive curricula and instruction in all subjects with an emphasis on math and science.
Thank you, Noah. So I'll go to roll call. Danny Ellingson here, Cody Schneid.
Here.
DJ Johnson.
Here.
Maggie Bergrath.
Here.
Jeff Heng.
Here.
Patel Patel.
Here.
Jennifer Bartle.
Here.
Wendell Slutton.
Here.
Teresa Ward.
Here.
And we have Joseph here, and Noah is planning to come, but not.
Oh, other way around.
Oh, other way, sorry, yep. Sorry, we have Noah here, Joseph is planning to come. So, item number 3, we have approval of agenda, any conflict of interest. So maybe I'll start with just any conflict of interest. Anyone want to declare tonight? We're okay to have an update and discussion on expansion? All right, then I would ask for approval of the agenda, which we have 2 items on the discussion and 1 potential decision.
Was that sent out? Because I don't remember.
So,
Yeah, where is the
the agenda? This
Sorry.
is the first time I've seen it.
Okay, so let's go to the webpage.
This is what's.
On the website.
Yep, try to bring it up together with you guys. So if we go to agenda, so like if you go to the Board of Directors page, I'm looking on the right-hand side, agenda 12/5/2022. See, we'll click on that, download. Are you guys able to pull that up?
Oh, down.
Let me know if you're not
Okay.
able to find. Sorry.
Got it.
Could have started there. And this discussion section was what was emailed out a couple of weeks ago before the last board meeting. So this is the MSA Board of Directors will review all expansion options together, includes potential expansion options for new construction, renovation, relocation, and mergers. And then I added expansion next steps. So that's kind of for us to decide. And then on decision, I left it generic because I'm just one person on the board, so I just put down board to provide updated guidance to expansion committee as needed, and we can craft that motion as we need. Okay? So can I get, if you guys have a chance to review
Just a
it?
comment,
Yeah.
and part of it is my fault. I didn't see the agenda because when I saw a special board meeting, I clicked on that, I went to that website, it wasn't there, period. And now it's scrolled at the very bottom of the landing page. Completely confusing. I didn't even see it.
So we have two sections, are you saying?
Well, no, I mean, if you look on upcoming events, I clicked on special board meeting, it goes to a landing page, and the agenda's not there. So I didn't scroll down to the bottom of the first landing page, go all the way to the bottom, and that's where the agenda was. And you don't see it unless you look at everything and scroll up and down. So we need to put it on the page. It's a special board meeting.
Jeff, do you see this right here? Agenda for 12/5.
No, I mean, I see it now.
The main page.
But if you go to upcoming events and you click on special board meeting,
This page?
that's
Like
it.
he's thinking,
Yeah, I didn't see it before
That's it.
either, so.
There's no agenda
He's
there.
right here, but if you go further down, it's right there.
Okay.
So, I know, my fault for not scrolling all the way down,
I think
but
it's confusing. Yeah, we have 2 locations, so just, I guess, Randy, as we think about when we post it next time, if we have another one, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Kind of got it in 2 spots. All right, can I get, is anyone okay for any changes that need to be made for tonight's session? I'll make a motion to approve the agenda then.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead,
Go
Wendell.
Okay, I'll second it. Okay, Wendell, second. Any further discussion? Okay, then all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So the agenda passes 9-0. So then I think we're okay to move on to the discussion. So just one editorial comment, I'll keep it brief because the main purpose is for our discussion tonight. That's why we're having this special meeting, right? And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, especially December, right? But so it's for the board, right? A number of folks on the board have had a chance to sit in various different meetings, but this is your chance to get caught up, if you will. So I've asked that we kind of try to keep the background simple and quick and brief, and then allow a lot of time for you guys to have discussions. We had a practice run last week, Thursday. Jeff and I had a meeting with the expansion team. It took about an hour and a half. So between an hour and a half is what I'm going to try to hold us to, but it's a very important discussion, so we'll take the time that we need. But that's my soapbox. So I guess we'll turn it over to, and I think we had a presentation.
Yeah, I mean,
That would
I'll
help,
put
yeah.
the PowerPoint on the slideshow. Thank you.
Can you put it on presentation mode?
Upper right hand, it's a
It says
slideshow.
slideshow.
Click on that, upper right hand. Right there,
Thank you.
yeah.
That'll help when we do the colors.
Okay, if you want to go to the next slide, then I'll go real quick through the timeline. If you, on the website, under expansion is our timeline. It's very, very detailed. I just pulled the most recent stuff on, because there's stuff all the way back from June when we hired our owner's rep to Cunningham and all this stuff. So really, really quick. Okay, so if you remember in October on the 3rd, we had a special board, our last special board meeting took place there. That's where we discussed expansion and that merger. And then on October 17th at our regularly scheduled board meeting, the admin recommended postponing the merger discussion just to focus on the expansion. We have had, starting in July, Tuesday meetings with a small group from the expansion committee, but with our owner's rep, our architects and our construction company is meeting every Tuesday. And on the 18th, then after that, we really focused on our expansion project meeting, really explored all of our options, started looking thoroughly through all the comparisons of these options. That's been happening for a while. And then on the 18th during that meeting, we shared a new option at this expansion project meeting that involved a merger with WLA, which involved switching the two schools, a little bit different twist. So where WLA would come and redesign this for a K-5 building, and 612 would occupy their existing site. This option was presented by one of our board members, and that's where we brought this forward to that expansion project team. Then on the 6th, which was 3 weeks after the previous board meeting, so we focused on these options. And then on the 16th of October, the expansion project team went to WLA for a tour so they could kind of see what the building looked like, what we need to do with it. 11/21 was our November board meeting where the board of directors discussed expansion timeline and our plan. Then on the 29th, at the expansion project meeting, we put together that report card and looked at all the options, which was shared with everybody. You'll see that will be coming in a few slides here. And then on, as Dan mentioned, last Thursday, 12/1, the expansion committee met to discuss and they looked through the report card and the budget and timeline. And that brings us here today. So that's kind of what's happened just the last couple of months. It's been very busy.
And I'm just gonna stand up here because it's easier to point to the numbers. So, charter schools get funding in a couple of different ways. The relevant ways right now are for our general fund, which is where we get paid per pupil. That's our money for teachers and running the building and all of the things that we operate with. And then there's lease aid borrowing, max lease aid borrowing. If we stay MSA alone and we maintain this current site, so we have $8 million in bonds right now, we would have to maintain those if we keep this site. We could borrow $20,600,000 in our current interest rates. We could pull another $400,000 out of our general fund, our money that we spend on teachers and running the school, to get another $6 million. FF&E stands for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That comes out of money we've saved up. We're not allowed to borrow money for that. We have to use money that we have saved, and we have that. That's $1 million. We can get about another $300,000 a year out of our lease aid that we're not spending right now. So all alone, maintaining this site, our total budget is $36,200,000. That's all we can get here. Does anybody have any questions on the sources of funding? I want to try and go really quick, but.
So this isn't expansion at all? This is just staying the way we are? Or are you?
This is for expansion if we maintain this site. That could
And
be.
build on the site?
Build on this site or keep this site and build a high school somewhere else. This is all the money there is. Okay?
We can't keep a high school, middle school on this site with that?
Well, we could use that money for that. We'll go talk about those options
Okay,
later, but this
okay.
is all the money there is for that.
And maybe
Okay.
just to take a step back, so I think as we go through all the various different options, right, there's gonna be a dollar figure on the bottom, like some will be 80 million. So
Right.
you gotta compare, we have 36 versus the 80 million
Okay.
price tag, and you
Okay.
can see that's why we're steering the decisions a certain way.
Okay, I just was
Yep.
confused by the maintaining current site. Does that mean staying and not doing
selling
anything?
Not selling MSA, we have to keep paying the 8 million. We are, basically think about it as a mortgage. So we have
Okay.
a $8 million mortgage on this
Okay.
building. If we save this building, if we keep this building, we have to continue to pay that $8 million mortgage.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. I'll wait till the end.
Okay. Amanda, you want to flip to the next one?
So actually, it might be helpful to kind of explain a little bit more what max lease aid borrowing actually is and how that number is arrived at.
So max lease aid for each pupil, we get $1,314. We would, to max that out with 1,400 kids, that's all we get. Okay, that's the most we can get from the state. And that's what the state will reimburse us. We have to pay 10% of the cost, but that's the max we can get from the state, yes.
And 1,400 kids is more kids than we have currently.
Currently, we have 600
Okay.
kids that we're getting lease aid on.
So this is money, the max lease aid is 1,400 kids.
1,400 kids, that includes the
Okay.
600 we already have.
Got it.
1,400 total.
I mean, to be a little more accurate, 20 million isn't the lease aid. That is the amount of money that is supported by
Right, by
the debt
the-
service
yeah.
that we can afford
Correct.
based on the lease aid
So
that
we
we
would
are
be paying
receiving.
10% of that, and the lease aid would pay for 90% of that. Yes, there you go. Okay, Amanda, you want to flip to the next one? If we got rid of this site, so we don't keep this $8 million in bonds that we currently have on this site, that allows us to have more borrowing power because we're not paying the 8 million. So we can borrow, or 28 million is the max we can borrow, plus another 6 million, which is coming out of our general fund, and then these dollar amounts remain the same. So that gives us a max budget, spending-wise, of the 35,600,000. That make sense? Yes.
So anytime we take anything out of the general fund, that can directly fund or affect what teachers get, what students can get, what
Correct.
we can do for extracurriculars activities. So the more we touch our general fund, the more issues we're gonna see.
Right, and this is about the max we can take out of the general fund before they won't borrow. They won't lend us unlimited amount. This is the max. But that means then there's not a lot of extra fluff in our budget for anything.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but that's coming straight out of our operating budget.
But 10% always has to come out of our operating budget.
Correct, that's out of this one. But this is another 400,000 out of our operating budget to get this 6 million.
So you're saying the general fund is the operating budget for the year?
Yep, that's the money we use to pay for teachers and pay for the electric bill and pay for anything that we spend money on. Yeah, transportation, any of that. That's not attached to the building. Okay? Amanda, you want to flip to the next one? If we were to merge with WLA, we would have a total of 700 elementary kids and 1,400 secondary kids. That's the same number of secondary kids, 612, that we were talking about in any of those other options. If we merged with them, we would keep the 8 million in bonds that we have here, which are on at 3%. We would keep the $22 million in bonds that they also have at the other site at 3%, which is half the interest rate right now. So if we were to go out and borrow this $30 million today, we couldn't borrow, the payment would be double, right? Because the interest rate is double since these loans were taken out. So maintaining those, and then we could borrow another 15 million or so. On top of that, that would be the only amount that we'd be paying the full 6% or whatever the exact interest rate turns out to be. Our bond guy estimates it to be about 15.5 million. And then these dollar amounts are the same. So we would have a total remodeling budget of 17 million.
But we don't touch the general fund in this case.
No general fund is touched, so that makes a difference because we have a lot more leeway then in terms of what we can spend on students, what we can pay teachers, any of those things. Does anybody have any questions on how much borrowing we can do? Okay, Amanda, you want to flip to the next one? This one's going to be harder to see. You've got it in your papers. These are just the options that we have explored with our contracted people. How much they cost, how much of the construction budget, that money I just showed you, how much we have to spend on that option, and this is how much the difference is. The big thing to look at is when you look at 4A or 4B and 4C, 4B, which looks good because it would be everybody at that Hudson Road building. It would only be 40,000 square feet remodeled on that site. Currently, we have 52,000 square feet for 600 kids. We would have 1,400 kids in 40,000 remodeled square feet. So what that would look like would be large amounts of just wide open space that we probably have to make classrooms by putting cabinets or something around. And we would have already maxed out our general fund and everything. So although it's not a negative number, we're in kind of a rough spot there. And then this other one, the Hudson Road with the split location, that's high school at the Hudson Road building, middle school here. That only gives us 15,000 square feet remodel, but, and a gym. We got a single gym in any of these options, except for this one, that we're 12 million in full, then we get a double gym. So that's how much money we have in construction. So we're negative 27 million, 16 million, 38 million, 12 million. This one we could maybe make work for the construction side, but then we have to look at what happens to our operating budget when we do that. So if we take 400,000 out of our operating budget, our projected surplus in the 26-27 school year is $326,000. It's going to be really a lean deal on that. That's without really adding any more programming. It's adjusting for additional staff. It's not adjusting for any kind of pay increases or anything like that. Some places where it's 226,000, we have to pay 100,000 in shuttle bus. Because if we're having a split site, because we have a site in 833 and we would have a site in 622, we would get busing, but we would have to operate a shuttle that would run between this location and the WLA location. So that's where that shuttle bus cost comes from. Here in these Hudson Road options, where we're all going there, Then we have nothing in 833 anymore, so we're gonna have to pay $1 million a year in busing. So even if we could afford the option, our operating budget is $674,000 in the hole. So nobody's gonna loan us money if we're projecting to be going bankrupt, because that's bankrupt really fast. And we wouldn't be in compliance with any of our bond covenants, so I don't think we could do those options. This one with the 15,000 square feet of classroom, we would still be dangerously low in terms of our surplus for that many students. That would be considered really risky. So that's what happens there. In a merger, we still don't know how much it would cost to do the remodeling yet. We should get those numbers within the next couple of weeks. So we don't know the difference here, but we do know that a combined school, we have an operating surplus of in excess of $1 million because we would have, be able to assume our full $726,000 in operating surplus, which was the reason in a lot of ways for the merger. We get to keep that. WLA is currently paying $400,000 a year for busing out of 833. That expense wouldn't exist anymore, but we would have to pay for the shuttle bus. So that's how we get to that number. And then staying put, and right now we're really overcrowded, so if we decided no expansion, no nothing, we're gonna stay where we are, we would probably have to bring our student number back down to 550, because this is really not sustainable with this many kids here. I mean, our kids know, I mean, the hallways are jammed, it's rough. At that point, we would have to bring down our operating budget by about $400,000 a year in order to do that. And that's going to be really difficult because we haven't even fully understood how the 8% current inflation rate is impacting our budget right now. We don't know, I mean, it looks good. It looked good when we made the budget, but costs are going up much faster than what we had expected at that time.
Joseph, can we hold questions to the end, and then we'll save a big portion for discussion.
Okay,
we'll just,
so that's the budget thing.
Okay. So on the next one, we have the color red, green, and it's very small. Apologies for that, but there's a lot of information there. Did you guys get a chance as a board to take a look through this? It's, like I said, it's a lot of information. I'll just start, and then I don't know, Jeff, if you want to add anything else. But so outlined is options here listed 1 through 5. Where on the left-hand side, we try to capture a lot of the feedback that the community's given on the things that are important for our expansion, as well as the board's strategic, initiatives and plans, and so that's what we're using to kind of grade each option, and the dollar amounts are on the bottom, as we mentioned earlier, which is kind of we need to reference back to what Kate helped share with us. So I would just say, like on the current site number 2, and also the option of number 3. This is the point with the community where we got to that second design phase, and we were drawing out our wish list and saying, boy, wouldn't it be great here, here, and here, and we were starting to get some of that feedback. The dollar amounts are significantly more than we can entertain. So that's when we made that call to say, do we do a third design session? It was like, time out, we need to kind of regroup here, because we can spend more time going down that path, but maybe it makes more sense to start looking at other options, which is where you see 4A, B, C, and now 5, where they're starting to be within closer financial reasonableness. So I wasn't planning on us each going through each and every, but you guys do have the charts in front of you. So Jeff, unless you want to add anything else, we could maybe spend some time on questions.
Yeah, just a minute or two, just to give people a feel for kind of the progression of how the smaller group meeting with our owner's rep looked at some of the options and some of the simple calculations we made and why some of the options dropped out. So a simple one to just use as an example is number 1, which is stay on this current site. If you remember 3, 4, 5 months ago, we thought the operating assumption was if we stayed, that would somehow be cheaper than building a whole new site somewhere else, that we could recover and use building B and use a bunch of other things. As it turns out, complex as it is, our owner's rep and Cunningham, our architect, said, well, okay, this might be how we can fit all of what we want in a 5-acre space. And it turned out to be way more than we had ever thought. It was, according to this, if you see the fine print on the bottom, it's like close to $56 million if we stayed. Part of the expensive piece of it is because we use so much of the 5-acre piece of property, we would have to build a parking structure. And the structure itself got expensive because we thought, oh, it might be $10,000 a stall. We need 200 stalls. Well, the Kraus Anderson, our construction manager, said it's closer to 50 grand a stall. That's 10 million bucks for a parking structure. And we all shake our heads going, yeah, that doesn't feel right. 20% of our budget should not go to one thing like that. It got really complicated because there, we used up the green space, we needed more drainage, holding ponds, and you name it. So 56 million bucks for staying here. That's the day we realized, okay, we're gonna have to look elsewhere and extend the search a little further. The next level was looking for brand new space. Oddly enough, we shouldn't be surprised actually, it was even more expensive. So, we will go from 55 million bucks to brand new space, everything we want, 76 million bucks. So the first one was way out of our budget, the second one is way, way out of our budget. Then we pivoted and said, hey, we're gonna have to look at remodel. So the assumption there is remodel means hopefully half the construction cost per square foot as brand new construction. And once again, now it gets really complicated because we have to look for buildings that currently exist and whether there is in fact the ability to take that space, make it usable, and keep the budget down to manage the construction costs. So right now, you can see on this, we're looking at a place on Hudson Road. Right now, it's got 1 or 2 tenants, that's not the big issue. It's one level, 150,000 square feet. Needs to be remodeled heavily because it's an office building. We would have to build a gym because it has no gym, of course, and some of those other features that we thought we would like. Obviously, it has none of it, and it would have to be attached. So that's the Hudson. So if you look at each of those options, it's a variation of the same theme, which is, do we move, do we stay, partially move, do we have 9 through 12 there, and 6 middle school here, and different versions of that, trying to play around with it to see if we can manage the most efficient way of moving into that building and hopefully get everyone into the same location. Everyone meaning middle school, high school. And then finally, WLA, that represents an option of a building at this point. And obviously, they're built as a school, so, I don't think there'd be any argument that they're the closest in terms of the building we want because it's a new construction school. Now, there are going to be some fixes and additional features that we'd like to add. We have that list. So that's why we're really kind of leaning towards the right end of this matrix. The dots, we use the color code just to make sure that we kind of make sure we hit all the high points of what we've been looking for and make sure we're looking at our list of needs and wants. So that's what all the color code is. And right now, we have to look at specifically the dollar amounts now and how we manage that and perhaps even come up with other suggestions on how we can manage some of that cost. So that's where we are in terms of, I guess, this discussion.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of information and there's no way that we can boil many, many months down into 30 minutes, right? So, but I think maybe we could go around and maybe Jennifer, could you start us off? Sorry. We'll just go around if you guys got questions and then we can try to address them here. Because I think if you think about tonight's session, it's an information session for the board. That's a special meeting, that's what we're having. So it's to get you guys up to speed with what the expansion's done. But then it's also like, because we can't have a discussion unless we're having an open meeting. So let's have that discussion now. Where's your head at? What are you thinking? And then let's hash that out because it would be great if we could signal to the community the board feels like we're moving in this direction or that. Because I think at the end of this session tonight, it would be nice to say, here's where we're leaning, and then give the community, that, one idea was to give the community a couple weeks of feedback. It's not a popularity contest, we have to be careful there, right? I mean, but it is, we are doing this together, so any information that we can grab, from the community would be fantastic. So I think with those two things in mind, is, like, where are you at? You had a couple questions before?
Well, I guess, as far as merging, we haven't really talked as a board about elementary school, so I kind of lean away from that and lean more toward, if we're gonna pick 622, which I don't like, I would rather be independent and not
can I hear
have
why you
an
don't like
elementary
622?
school attached to it. Say that again?
Can I hear why you don't like 622?
Well, because I live in 833.
Okay.
A lot of students do too. I'm not sure the busing situation is gonna work out with the shuttle bus thing. I think when they find out that a lot of kids are going to 622, they're not gonna allow them to all be dropped off here and then shuttled over to 622.
They have to be training all the, MBE.
So when you say they have to, tell us more about
They're
that.
dropped off here?
Yeah.
No, but why do they have to?
833 students we dropped off here, we pay for the shuttle for them there because we're a district and we have a foot in 833. As long as one of our schools is in 833, all of our students can be dropped off here.
Even if pupils aren't going to school in 833,
If
they're
in our
considered,
district, yes. They're in our school district, yes. And then we would bus the difference. I call the transportation office and
Oh.
yeah, I'd like to see that in writing, because in the past, when we've dealt with the bus company, they've been very strict on who they'll bus and how. And,
They won't bus people outside of the district here into the district, they don't have to do that.
Well, I
So
mean,
anybody
in the
that lives outside of
past-
833 would not be bused into 833.
right. I just want to make sure they understand that the pupils we're talking about will not actually go to school in 833. So technically, they're not 833 pupils. And I know it's a slight, we might see it as, well, okay, a little slight difference in the rules, but they're not pupils of 833, so it would be nice to get that in writing.
But they would be pupils of MSA, right? So therefore, MSA is also in 833.
Correct, but we're also our own separate school district, of course.
Right.
So it's really all about, they are residents of 833, but they're not going to school in 833. And I just want to make sure that they're not going to use that against us later, because that's $1 million decision.
Yeah.
And
I think it's fair to say we have some more follow-up on
Right.
busing, right?
Yeah,
I think
yeah, no,
busing
I mean,
we
that's
highlighted
just it.
as yellow, because it's not a clean solution by any means. I mean, right, it's not, they pick them up from their house and they go right to the school they need. That's not what the proposition is right now. It's a little bit more of a step, right? Step-by-step
Yeah.
process.
I'll let someone else go. I'll
Okay.
pipe in later.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So it looks like some of these options, we are considering a split campus and possibly, like with 4C, we're having a split campus into two different school districts. Have we considered just keeping a 6 through 12 here in 833 and then making a second school that's also 6 through 12 in a different school district where their busing is completely, contained in that district, instead of trying to split middle school and high school?
So, starting another MSA in,
Like cloning, technically, we could probably clone anywhere in the state, that's not feasible, but Washington County, or we could even maybe somewhere else in the cities, I don't know. But it'd be two separate schools, 6 through 12.
so would that be like number 3?
It'd be like, I suppose it would be like number 3, except instead of, it'd still be splitting, because half are, we'd have 700 students here and 700 students there.
But you're saying, but we'd have to build a whole new site.
Possibly.
So, okay.
Well, we couldn't find anything local, but if we're expanding our searches to all of the Twin Cities, we might find something.
there's a school that does something like that. They're called the Vale Academy, and they have 3 locations. I know one is in Fridley, and they have another
They're a
location.
private school. They're a private school.
I was just gonna say they kind of did what you were saying. How they were in Fridley, and another one was in Edina. So, and they're also 6 to 12 location.
You said a Vale is a private?
So I think, Cody, you bring it up a bigger point, which is, and these are the options that we've kind of spent a lot of time on. Are there others? Yeah, probably, right? And I think now is the greatest time as any, right? Because I don't think we as a board should feel pressure to, like, decide amongst these 5. If there's something else that we're missing, we as a community, let's take that time and figure that out. There's no point in jumping, because to be honest, I mean, we're 20 years into this school's history, and we are talking about setting ourselves up for the next 20, right? So does it need to be December 5 or 6 or 7, right? I mean, we're putting the pressure on ourselves. We've been talking expansion now for many years, if you think about it, but this pressure is coming from ourselves to try to set up our school. So I think, Cody, I mean, that one, there's a few other ideas that are not necessarily on this chart that we could talk about tonight too, if that makes sense. But I mean, so any and all are welcome, right? Thank you. Anything else, Cody?
At one point, Megan and I started talking about some online school stuff, but I think a lot of schools are doing that too, so that might, since it's so popular, we might not have a competitive edge there, but it's a possibility.
Do we have an answer on the online?
They're not as popular now, okay, I mean, they were coming
Couple years ago.
out of the pandemic, but now students are, a lot of those schools are no longer, or very few, it's kind of it's not a financial gain because it's very expensive to designate staff members to do online instruction, there's not as many kids participating in it because they want to be back in school.
I mean, I'm not saying like discrediting what you're saying. But there's like a school in Minnetonka called Northgate Academy. They have 5,000 plus students that's online in Minnesota.
And there are some that do it very well, and that's all they do.
I had a question, just I guess with the whole entire merger situation, and I guess this is kind of aimed towards more of the lower school if you were to go forward with it. Just some things. One, I guess two of my biggest questions. How would the busing work? Have we taken full account onto the situation with the funding for the busing, simply due to the fact that WLA buses not only 833, but they also bus 622, and they also bus Stillwater area. So and they spent almost $500,000 every single year just to get all those students. So have we thought about moving, when we move them over here to 833, how are those students going to get over here, and how would that affect our budget? My second question would be also moving students here, and this was apparently supposed to be the K through 5 location. When we were walking in between, I feel like the layout of this school right now is good for the upper system, the older students, but how feasible would it be for little kids to be walking in between buildings in this terribly cold weather? And at the same time, I know we talked about in the town hall how we might, change the school around to accommodate for those kids, but have we taken that money, or I guess what we thought that money would be to renovate this school, how we put that into our plan with the WLA merger?
It was on the slides, yeah.
So I guess one open question, let's just say that we decide, we as a board, and I don't want to jump there, but if we were to say we go down this merger path, right, where we swap buildings, so we now are in a different physical location and they're in this location. I think what Kate is saying is there's $17 million left with that scenario. So what hasn't been answered yet is, with that $17 million, would WLA be happy with, let's say, the renovation that will be required here? I don't think we have the answer to that. We won't have it tonight. So it is entirely possible that if we go down that path, we say, that sounds good from us, we need a new building, you've got a building, let's trade, right? That's a very, very simple way of looking at it. They could come back and say 17 million is not sufficient to modify this for their K through 5 needs. It's a possibility. We don't know the answer to that right now. So.
Well, and we might be needing some of that 17 million.
We may also need for the
to get it
for the gym.
up to our,
yeah.
what we need.
Yep. So there's still some questions outstanding, and we decided that instead of, because another option was just have like 100% of the information sorted out, but I think we're maybe 70, 80, 90% of the way there, and there's still some questions that I was thinking. So we thought now's a good time to bring the board in and say, here's what it's looking like. So busing is another one where I think we have some ideas of how that could work. It's not pretty, I would say. That's the drawback to that one. It's got a lot of greens, but the busing is the thing that's holding that one back, right? Is the busing is not pretty because, I mean, you would be dropped off here, and then at least the current plan is then you would take one big bus or however up to the 2 miles up the road, right? So.
Another thing I think you pointed out, I think for the elementary, they stay in their classroom, like, they stay in one classroom the whole day. So it's not gonna be like the entire school is in the parking lot 7 times a day moving from building to building, right? So that,
They would have to maybe move for specialists, but that's all they really move.
yeah, they'd move, if this is the music room, one class would be moved, or probably 2 classes moving at once.
Yep.
To go to music and one to the gym.
But it's fair, this is a middle high school. This is not an elementary school. So if you are an elementary school, you may have set the building up in a different way. The rooms may have been configured differently, so there's some things that would need to be done.
Locker sizes.
Locker sizes, right? I mean, it's not a drop-in. 17 million sounds like a lot, but it may not be a lot considering what we're looking at for our expansion needs is in the tens and tens of millions, right? Can we keep going around, Tracy?
So the little dots under the merger, the last 2 are not filled in with
We don't
each
know.
other? Those are unknown, that's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah,
Okay.
good question. We debated putting something in there, but to be honest, we don't know. We don't know the
Right.
answer to that yet.
That makes sense.
And we engaged the companies, right? I mean, MSA is paying these companies. So it gets a little bit squishy to have, let's say, WLA using our, contract, so we haven't engaged them yet because we don't really have permission to start spending our money on another school.
I just had a question. Who is, did you say that you guys were the ones that were filling out these?
We did it
Well,
together
who's
with
the-
our general, what would you call it, building, construction rep.
Construction
company
and the architects.
It's done just about a week ago last week.
About
right?
15 people maybe.
Yeah,
And they also did the WLA section as well.
we did it all together, yeah. But the nice thing about having them is I think they are kind of like a third party. So we said the left-hand side is the column basically generated by our community of what our wish lists are. They're the ones that they created these drawings up on the top. We paid them for some of those kind of conceptual sketches and then fill the charts out together. Hello, anything?
Not really right now. My only question is, does the committee have a recommendation? And that is blessed by admin? Or,
We haven't had that conversation about process. That's probably part of that next conversation as we wrap up next steps. On the best way to arrive at a decision, what information we need still, and how to go about that.
so
So-
there's no committee, there's no expansion committee recommendation?
So, yep, you're right. I think one of the things we did discuss is like the 73 million, the 45 million, the 50 million. Those options, we as a committee could not come up with a way to bridge those gaps. So it's like, we even debated, do we even bother filling it out? But we said for completeness, let's fill out the section because, hey, it's perfectly green all the way down except for we can't afford it, right? So it's great. It does all the things that we want because, of course, it's our dream list, right? So I would say we kind of ruled out anything over the 30-some odd million is out because unless somebody knows how to get another 20-some million or whatever the number is, we don't know how to afford it right now. We have had some discussions, some of the folks from the community are saying, hey, can we do some more fundraising or what have you? And yeah, I think we can and maybe we should, right? We can talk about that as a board do we think we want to put a pause on it and we want to go back at whatever option and raise $20 million so that we can bridge that gap? That's perfectly fine for us to say. But it goes back to then we can't fit 600-700 kids in this current building. So then for the next however long that takes, then it means that we're going to dial back our students and do whatever we need to do in order to do that. I'm not saying yes or no, but to answer your question, some are no right now because we don't know how to do it. And then we're left with only a few options, which doesn't mean that we have to do those, it's just that's what the committee's come back with so far.
So to stay aligned to our strategic goals of growth, there seems to be an option, or we stay the same or shrink. What was the number, 500? Go to 500 students, 550 students? Would the committee agree that that's where we're at?
I would say, maybe Jeff, we don't have another one, we don't have another option.
Is there another option here that's even viable?
I mean, there are different ways of looking at it. When I stated at the last board meeting, we have no other strategy. The one strategy we chose for growth is expanding the building, renovation, the building. We don't have a strategy for merger. We don't have a strategy for online. We don't have a strategy for any other option that might be out there. We did no research, we didn't look at it, we didn't ask those questions. So, maybe this time to just make the comment here is, once again, we try to figure out a strategy before we accept merger as an option. Because if we don't look at the strategy first, then we don't know what criteria by which we're actually looking at the option of merger. Because right now, we're looking at it as a building. That's different from strategy. And to give an example, just so that, at least from my perspective, a strategic question would be like the one Wendell asked. It's like, should we be moving to another district, 622? Just pros and cons, impacts on our school for doing that. And right now, we're kind of wrapping it, and the only question we've answered so far is transportation. Big issue, but I think there are other bigger issues. To cross the line over into another area, there's got to be research to be done on how that's going to impact. And I think there's going to be at least a short-term impact on students, and I think there will be a little bit of a shift. Over time, you're going to look at the ratio, and there are going to be fewer 833 students, just because they have to mentally cross that border, and we'll get more 622.
So we do not want to change our strategic goal of growth. We want to continue to look at growing our school. We do not want to be a 550 student school.
So
we need to look at the viability of a merger. We need to know these.
Or other options. Not just merger. Merger is one option. Another way of looking at.
What would another option be?
What?
Like what would you say is another option? Like we're looking at these like split sites, staying sites, going to a different site. What would other than merger?
Spend some time looking at online possibilities. Merger with yet another school. The fact that, we're looking at this because a school approached us. So let's kind of back up the timeline. Merger wasn't even within our universe until someone approached us. What does that tell us? We weren't thinking about it. That tells us something. That was not in our universe, not something we considered, not something we wanted, not something we even thought about. And yet all of a sudden we find ourselves.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
No, it doesn't, but we have to think about
I think
the strategy.
there's other things we could think about. Like, has anybody looked into those portable classrooms? We could put one in the backyard, I don't know.
Well, one thing, when we've talked about merger, we're talking about merging with an elementary school and making a seamless K through 12 system. We haven't really explored merging with another school that just does middle and high school. And another thing I want to point out, like some of our options of splitting the high school and middle school, were that really in our strategic plan either? Or, we haven't even really, that was maybe a little bit more of a possibility, but that's also kind of a new, we haven't really fully investigated that idea, because busing is one thing, but there's other, I personally as a student like seeing sixth graders all the way through seniors in one campus. So I don't know if separating them is a good thing or not. So.
I think we didn't start there. We ended up exploring there because of the numbers, right? So it was like, we can't get a 6 through 12. What if we did 9 through 12?
And another comment, so about the not expanding and staying where we are, I believe historically charter schools, one of the biggest reasons they fail is they reach capacity and cannot make their budgets work. And I'm willing to put that work in to try to make that work, but there's only so much we can do.
So Cody, is that what's happening to us now at 621 students? Like what we have now is not sustainable, is that correct? 621 in this building.
So the thing is, like, our wages are lower than other schools. So the cuts we're having to make, I think, are going to eventually, we can try to keep up with and keep cuts and keep the budget balanced, but we're going to run into problems down the road where our wages aren't high enough.
How long are you talking?
I don't.
I think that's a great
How much time do we have?
Yeah.
Because interest rates could go down. I mean, we
But
might
as
want
inflation
to wait it out. Wait it
as
out.
inflation goes up,
Part
it's
of our
good
surplus
preference.
this year, what we're having, is we're using COVID funds to pay general ed salaries. That's not gonna be available to us next year. You know what I mean? We're able to use for 2 staff members, we're able to pay their salaries this year through COVID funds for interventions. That's a 1-year deal. So next year, those salaries come off of that, come back to our general fund, which is the impact that's
So,
going
yeah,
on.
we've had a little, like, COVID has been a Band-Aid to help us limp along. So, like I said, I'm not saying dropping and staying put and keeping that maximum limit, but it's, if inflation keeps up with it, keeps the way it is, and the state doesn't start giving us more funding, because we're at 2%, they're not matching inflation.
When would the state give us more funding?
I think that didn't
It's every-
just improve. It's like July 1st, isn't it? When the fiscal year.
I think, is it a 2-year cycle? So last year they were talking about, there were hopes that they would bump it up from, 2%'s like the minimum, and then they kind of, every 2 years they agree on what it's going to be. So it'd be another year before we find out if it's going to bump up, and then another, we're a half year into it stayed the same. So it'd be a year before we find out, and then a year and a half-ish before we actually get the.
We can't rely on that for any reason. The number is so
Can't rely on
small
that either.
anyway, and, yeah.
So we're looking at the 1,600
Yeah,
per
yeah, I
student,
mean-
right? That's the
Yeah.
constant.
It's gonna go up by
So
a
if we're
hair's
looking at
breadth.
1,600 per student, even if the bond rates go down
Well,
to
that's.
3%,
that's-
how do we still do it at 3%? Is there a viable option to the holdout? So I guess we have a holdout option. Wait for the rates, how would we afford?
Or wait till real estate hits the market, or, I mean,
That is an option. We can try to stay where we are and hunker down for a few years and hope that the market stabilizes to favorable conditions. But if we take that gamble and it doesn't pan out,
And with the loss of students and staff by holding out.
We're gonna need to
The
let
cost
the
of holding
students
out.
go next year,
yeah,
how does it cost?
yeah. So it's,
and maybe staff as well.
Could we keep going around, Maggie?
And that would be my concern, that we could not maintain our students and we would not be able to maintain our staff. And if you think this is a difficult situation, deciding how we're gonna lower which students can actually come here and which students and which teachers are gonna stay, that would be our next decision.
What do you mean?
If we have to lower to 550 to stay here, we will have to make decisions on which students which means which students are staying and which staff stays.
Wouldn't
We
just
have
lower
kicked
the sixth
this
grade?
can down the road for so long.
Missed opportunities.
We have missed and I get it. There is no perfect decision here. There isn't. And as one of two people who are employed at MSA who have seen MSA since it opened, it is not the same school it was when we opened. It isn't. It has changed drastically. This isn't the school you went to, Cody.
It is not.
It isn't. Okay, it's
This is
just
the
not.
school my children went to.
And it's a great school. That doesn't make it a bad place. But we need to make decisions and we adjust and we make it MSA because we need to, we want to, we love it. And I know none of these are perfect. And if we are going to say, let's explore merger, I think that's fine. It's not a guarantee that they're going to agree to do it. It makes me nervous to leave it down to one option. I'll tell you that. I don't like just saying this is what we're doing, because if they come back with a no, we're back at square one. And I am more terrified of saying we have to cut it back to 550 than I am of let's at least consider something. Because those are decisions that are painful to say, sorry kiddo, you don't get to come here anymore. However that works.
Don't we have 620 kids right now?
But
What
if
we
but it was
maintain
5
620?
something, we are so crammed in here.
Oh, okay.
It was
well,
done as an exception, and if you recall, when we
well,
approved
we
it,
made
it
an
was because we
exception.
were making
One
an
more
expansion.
year, maybe
We-
No, but I
two
mean,
more years?
we took the expansion plan and started ramping it up because we said, remember, we said by 24, 25, we're gonna have a new building. That was the marching orders from a year ago. We're not there now.
We
but-
thought
So we
it'd be a tight squeeze for a few years. We cannot.
stopped, we put them in, and we're asking everyone, please
This is
hunker
a great
down.
example of creep. You have no strategy, you go, when did merger become the default if we can't find a better solution? Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at it, we should, but we start by, once again, considering our strategy rather than,
But it needs to
making it
happen
default.
quickly because we cannot maintain this in this building.
We should have considered this, and so the feeling is there's no strategic fit with WLA. Because had there been, someone would have said, hey, yeah, simple decision. So, hang on. And I've been asking for, just a consideration of merger for the last 3 months. Nothing's been done, it gets pushed aside because there's no strategic fit. Everyone's afraid of actually asking the questions. I'm not afraid of asking the questions. And even if we find out there's no strategic fit and we have to do it, that's okay. Then we can make that decision, but we cannot ignore that and just slide into it because now we feel afraid of making a decision because, once again, the creep is coming along and this is what's happening. So we've actually put ourselves in a position of making it harder for ourselves to make a decision.
That surplus is really hard to ignore.
Not saying it isn't.
I would like to address a point here, and it's the elephant in the room, and this goes back to Paula Forbes, and we have to talk about it, and it's going to be tough. But I listen to the stakeholders. I listen to what's happening here at the board. I listen to the students. And the number one thing that is holding people back with option 5 right now is discrimination. It is founded in discrimination. The fact that everybody is pointing out their test scores is based in discrimination. Diluting our student population is discrimination. And if we're going to continue with that mindset, and if we as board members are going to base our decisions on discrimination, then you best step down. Because we already just spent $100,000 on an investigation just for that reason right there. And if you didn't learn from that discrimination, if you didn't learn from the investigation, then you need to reevaluate where you're sitting here.
We haven't even got to that conversation about, match and fit in that respect. I mean, no one's brought that up. We're just looking at how we should decide this. And right now, it's on emotion and not a whole heck of a lot of data. What you say, got it, I love it. Part of the consideration. We need to collect the data. We need to pick a way of making this decision that makes sense, rather than avoiding all these questions and putting ourselves in, oh, well, I guess we have to decide this because we put ourselves in this position. I mean, if that's the way we make decisions, then.
Any other questions? I just hope that we can make a decision that is in the best interest for our students and the future of MSA, because right now I see a roadblock, and it's not coming from the majority of the board or the teaching staff and the administration. It's coming from stakeholders and select people that are causing drama and just stuff based out of discrimination. And if I was WLA and I heard some of the conversations that's going around right now, I would back out. I would put my hands down and I'd say, nope, we're not gonna merge with that, because I am appalled. Did you have any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate Maggie's thoughts on kind of looking back on the history. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I have also wondered. It took 2 years for the idea of expansion to start, and then for the market to kind of get to a point that got ugly. And if anybody had a crystal ball, we'd be really, really wealthy to be able to decide what the economy is going to do in, say, 1 or 2 years on whether or not those will come back. It feels personal. It feels hard to be put into a spot to try to make a decision when you know there would be better options. And that always causes me to pause and to say, well, is it the right time then to force it? Can we hold off for a year or two until economic conditions would support 5 options instead of what feels like maybe 1 or 2? So from the standpoint of looking at options as we kind of go through this process, I do think that has to be at least considered. Because things did change in just 2 years. And if you want to look at various aspects of the crystal ball, I mean, there's been a change in state government. There's potentially more funding for education that's out there on the horizon. Whether we can count on that, we don't know. So I guess to your point, Jeff, there is information that we don't have in this matrix, and we may never know it, but there's other things I think that could play into making the best decision for the school. I would also then add that sustaining at 600 or 550 for longer than a couple of years certainly doesn't feel like that's sustainable. And so I definitely support the idea of expansion and growth, and I think those are all the right things for us to do if we want to be a viable charter school into the future. It is hard, and I think that also weighs on a lot of the people within our community as they consider those changes, to be forced into a change or to make a decision when not all the options are optimal. That's my answer.
Joseph, anything else? Any other questions, comments?
I guess, like, I mean, just from what I've been hearing over time, you know, it's gonna sound corny, but I feel like, you know, MSA is wherever the students are. You know, I feel like what makes up MSA, just like what MSA is the students here. So if MSA was at WLA, I feel like MSA would still be a place there at the same time. And, you know, I guess like over these past couple of months, just listening to what I've been hearing from the meetings, and kind of what even at the town hall today when I was to ask Mr. Vetch and Dr. Hinton, I was asking, you know, what benefit does MSA have to this? Because when we're thinking of merging, we want to think about first about us, and is this going to be beneficial to us? And I mean, the only thing that you brought up, you said that the only good thing that would be for us is that is their whole entire campus. You said that because when we're looking at an expansion, that's what WLA already has. So if we, instead of like spending all that money, WLA has already a lot of that stuff, so it would be good for us because they have a lot of that stuff in that area. And you know what, I understand that that is one major thing with our expansion, you know, with hot lunches, you know, green space areas, stuff like that. But I believe also thinking about the students and how they can get there, and I feel like there's a lot more that has to be done before we can make a really quick decision. Because I know Miss Berger brought it up, saying like we're really crammed in this space, and we are. I mean, if you go to Building A, I mean, Miss Ward probably has seen it. If you look at our hallways, I mean, it's just, I mean, it's ludicrous, like how crammed it is. And I feel like just for the time being, I feel like we're being pushed to say that WLA is it. I mean, if you look at their ticks, I mean, you don't see one red there. You see all greens and all yellows. And I don't, me personally, I feel like that has to be biased in a way. I feel like there has to be some things that WLA isn't good at. I mean, nothing is perfect, nothing is good. So, you know, and just hearing from you guys, I mean, I'm not saying that this is where we're gonna go for it, but listening to town hall meetings, it sounds like, and what I've been hearing from other parents, if they feel like it's almost already a done deal, and that you guys are actually just in the background, it's almost like giving MSA students and, you know, the parents false hope by having all these meetings saying like, you know, we're looking into it, but eventually at the end, we're gonna end up with the WLA merger. And for me, I guess I'm just gonna say that I've kind of like never been on board with the whole WLA situation, but I just want what's best for the school and especially what's best for the teachers. And I hope that, and all the facts are there, and I really urge Dr. Kim and Mr. Rich just look over those facts and just keep that in mind, just going forward. And that's all I really have to say.
Thank you, Coach.
So I don't have much to say, but like when we look on the report card, we have like maybe like five-ish options, like 5 options. But in reality, we have like maybe like 3 options, and I know that's not ideal, but it's like what we have. And if we keep on pushing this longer, like consequences are like really, really negative. Like you said, like I didn't really think about it until you brought it up, and then maybe like think deeper about it, and it's like bad if we keep on pushing this down. Like the students are like already like tired with what we're dealing with, and it's like, when is this gonna end? Like when are we gonna have something new? When are we gonna have something that really like embraces MSA culture, like something that works for all students, something that accommodates like what every student needs? And this is deeper than just like a building. This is also like, the building goes deeper than just like a physical space. It supports students' learning and all this stuff. And if we keep on pushing this down, this is gonna have like terrible effects, such as like the lower wages, staff getting kicked out, the students, and like students also getting like trampled in the hallways. And so I think that we have to really work with what we have right now, even though it might not be like ideal. So that's what I had to say, and I also like really, really agree with what you had to say, and like appreciate that. So.
Randy? Thank you, and everybody's input. And Joseph, you said something really, it doesn't matter where our kids are, it's our students, right? And that culture and that piece is going to be there, whether they're here, they're wherever it is, right? That was a great point. And just so you know, it's not my decision, it's the board's decision. I just represent the information from him. So that's your guys' decision, it's the board's decision on that. But it's, you know, we're brought here to expand our school and bring this, you know, our school to some financial stability, sustainability, and it's getting challenging, and it's going to be getting more challenging. I know Cody brought that up earlier. And sometimes time is not our friend to wait. When you look at 2 years ago when we had an expansion committee and no decision was made, we had $70 million available to us to expand at that time, which would have been, pick it, what do you want to do, right? Nothing was done. And now we're here today, and right? Those are gone. Those options that were available are no longer available. Time is not always, you know, we have no guarantees, like said DJ, we don't have a crystal ball. You know, it'd be great, you know, yeah, it's gonna get better years, we don't know that. So we do what we can with the information we have. And yes, do we need more information? Probably, I mean, you know, and I know you brought up merger, Jeff, as far as we don't have all the information. Well, we didn't even have permission to even look into it yet more. So that's something, if that's a decision, that's up to the board. If we look at that option, yes, we would probably need to put together a committee that just looks at the merger and works out all those details so we can get that all ironed out. But for me, I think waiting is, it's not going to be beneficial to our students and our staff. We have some big ideas and big things. We want to do college in the schools so we can give students college credit here so they can graduate with an AA degree. So we don't lose revenue in PSEO because they can do those classes here at MSA. But we can't do that if we don't have the revenue and income to provide that kind of quality education. We're excited about this stuff. It's just we're really holding back until this expansion is really big in many areas. It's not just for more students, it's more revenue for more programs, for more opportunities for our students and activities, and really being able to do more and get, you know, exciting things for our kids that want to come and do more than just what they're getting right now. I mean, kids are asking, do we have to take Spanish? Is that the only thing we have? But right now, that's all we can provide, you know, and there's so much more we could do, and providing an option that gives us financial sustainability where we can keep all our students together, we can pay our teachers what they deserve, and provide programs for our teachers, I think is what is our responsibility as admin and as a board. So, thanks, Fran.
I tried to withhold a little bit of mine, although you know, my comments just come out because it's natural. But I would say, you know, back to your question, Hedo, I mean, why are we doing this, right? I mean, we have a fantastic school. I think nobody here is going to argue it. We're all here because we believe in the school, right? I feel blessed because my oldest was lotteried in. But that's nothing that we did. We just got lucky, right? And I'm constantly talking to friends and others that they're, how do I get into MSA? How do I do this? How do I do that? And I feel like, what can we do to help? Why are we limited? We're limited by space. So I agree with Jeff. Space is a silly thing for us to talk about, but that's our current bottleneck. That's what's holding us back. We could take in more kids, and we would love to. And we would love to pay our teachers more, and we'd like more teachers to do exactly what you're saying, Randy. How do we get more engineering classes, robotic classes, different languages? All that stuff comes with scale. We don't have the scale now. So our strategy is built around facilities. It's built around students doing everything we can to build more students. So right now we're being held back by a building. And you're also right, Jeff, and not to single you out, we didn't go out to see who could we merge with. We went out and we said, where are the sites? What's green space? What's a brown site? Means what can we renovate, or what's out there? And that's where a building came from. So in my mind, it wasn't what other schools can we merge with. It was where's a building space that can fit our community, right? And WLA is a fantastic opportunity 2 miles away. So that is a little bit of my flavor, I would say. But I mean, they have done a great job of building that space up for education, and I can see our students there. There is some things that would have to be sorted out with that, no doubt. Busing is one we've highlighted. How do we maintain what we like? Look, if you're WLA listening to us, which I would assume they are, they're extremely proud of what they've done and what they've built and the community that they have. So just like we are proud of our community, they should be proud of what they've done and have. And so how do we do a merger of two buildings, if you will, and two communities, but still kind of protect our identity and keep everything that we're so very proud of? Pride is a tough word, but I mean, we are proud of what we've done and all of our history that we've brought to this current point. So how do we do that in a different space, right? And because that's what's holding us back, I feel. So I agree with you too, Randy. Boy, it would be great if we had $70 million that we could pick whatever site we want. We have found some beautiful sites, even within our community, which would make everything, but we can't go back. And I think it's a little bit time wasted for us to go back and wish and hope and all that stuff. Now we're at where we're at. So I think we're left with very few decisions now, but there's also the options of pause, right? But it's a painful option, but that's for us to decide, right? Is what do we do? I guess I've been on the board now for about 4 years. Sorry for those who have to listen to me for so long, but I've been kind of pushing for expansion for pretty much since I've got here. Like, this is exciting. How do we do it? How do we get this to more kids? How do we get the teachers paid what they should be paid because they're getting fantastic results, right? And how do we keep them excited to come to school every day, right? And it's not all about money, clearly it's not, because we're not paying the wages that some of the other schools are paying. It's not all about money, but how do we support them and set that up for success in the future? So I guess everyone had a chance to kind of share some of the questions. I'm sure there's more as you're noodling in the back of your mind, but it'd be nice if we could kind of shape it towards a little bit of like where are we leaning and what kind of guidance could we give our community, and then what would be some good next steps. Because if I was trying to go back through the notes and I couldn't quite find it because we have a lot of agendas, but at one time I do believe we'd asked for, the board had said expansion committee, and check me if I'm wrong, expand by 24, 25 school year, and what does that look like? I think that's the last marching orders that we have. Somebody can check me on YouTube or whatever, but I believe that, so if we need to change that, if that needs to be modified, amended, or whatever based on what we know now, I think that's fair for us to discuss. But what does that look like for our community? I mean, it'd be great if we carry down the expansion. You know, Jeff, what does that look like for your committee? If we set up a merger as an option, do we need another merger committee? Could be separate than an expansion committee. What would a merger committee look like? Because maybe that's different people on our board combined with the merger people on the WLA board, right? So what, I'm just throwing out a few ideas here. What are you guys thinking? Where are we at? Any?
I think a merger committee that looks at curriculum implications, extracurricular implications, in a collaborative way with what might be the most fiscally viable option would be the responsible thing to do. I think we have some preliminary data here. And we should explore it, because if it is not our vision and our commitment to shrink to sustainability, then we have this internal, we're developing some internal dysfunction in our growth here.
Dysfunction in what?
In the way we're growing.
Mm.
You know, we're adding students without financial backing for it.
Well, so what I'm seeing here, I'm seeing this Hudson Road split and the merger both have that busing implication. So I think if we're going to go down either of these routes that involve having campuses in multiple school districts, and I know busing, everyone keeps bringing busing up, so I think we really need to work on making sure that's a concrete answer, because if it's going to not be in our favor, then that's going to throw up a lot of roadblocks too. And
just a quick one, the $100,000, was that our estimate for busing?
That's what we estimated it would cost for those.
So we haven't like bid it out or anything yet?
Yeah, Mr. Vetch talked to MD, and they assured us that it's in statute that busing needs to be provided to students who live in 833 to here, and students who live in 622
To there,
and 622 has to pay to bus them to there. The shuttle bus, we're estimating, because there's no crowding, it's just back and forth, would be about $100,000. It could be more, I don't know.
So I think, to follow up on yours, we understand about how it would be done. I don't think we know exactly how much it would cost. We're estimating.
And we wouldn't necessarily know that until we figure out who's going to provide it, you know, if we're going to have to hire a charter or whatever, we don't know exactly. But we would need to explore it further.
Was WLA paying $400,000 to collect kids, or what was the number?
Yeah, so they're.
And that's very different than the shuttle bus.
Kids out of 833 into 622. A bulk of their kids, I think they're having, I hate to say, but I believe it was 400 or 500 kids, something like that, are riding. I think it was 500 because it was about $800 a kid to bring them from here to 622. They wouldn't have to pay that anymore because, well, those kids would come to this site, and then anybody who already lives in this site. So there's some complications, there's work, but we would have to have, you know, the ability to really explore that right now.
So I think it's fair to say busing is still a question mark.
Along with the costs, I think it'd be good to know, how does that affect the schedule? How long are they gonna be on the bus? I mean, is that gonna set school times back 20, 30 minutes? And can you bus elementary with high school kids? I think that there's a rule where you can't have little kids with
Well, I think it all over the state,
When,
I don't think there's, I think it's.
when I was a
I thought
student,
there was a
Best
rule
practice.
about that. Yeah, I thought that was a.
when I was a student, when I started here, we actually shared busing with New Life.
Because rural schools do that.
And
Little kids could be on the
it was K through 12, and then they drop all the kids off at New Life, and then they would drop kids off at,
Oh, okay.
after New Life, then they would come here
Okay.
and drop us off here, and then in the afternoon, we were picked up here. I don't know why,
We were done way earlier when you were here.
yeah,
We were done at 2:10.
yeah.
Earlier schedule.
And then they'd pick us up
We
here,
started
we'd
at
all be, like, there'd be like 4 buses here, we'd all pile into a bus, we'd go to New Life, you'd get on your actual bus home. So that was something,
Okay.
and it did add some time, but,
Well, and 8:33 determines our schedule because
Okay.
of the busing.
I just
For
mean,
here,
once they
I
drop
don't know
them
what
off
that,
here,
and again,
how
I don't
long
know
would
what
it
that
take the
means.
bus to 16?
It's
You know,
because the
you have-
elementary is bus first.
We have our shuttle.
And so
Right, but that's not how it's always been.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that we need to do some
Yes.
more on the busing. Anything
The
else?
other question, well, on a different note,
Yeah.
if we decide to lease the Hudson Road and go on our own, do we have to make a quick decision? I mean, are other people bidding on that site too? Like, are we like, we better hurry up?
It's been sitting out there a little bit, so,
We wouldn't lease it, we'd have to buy it.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay,
Lease it and then renovate it.
okay.
If that's something we want, we have to still get permission from the city to turn it into a school too.
Okay.
So there's a lot of steps in those, anything you decide, I mean, one of these could turn out to be a dead end.
Right.
And we have to come back to a different
Okay.
option.
So-
We just need to know what
Maybe we
what
could do
we
So
want.
we could say yes to Hudson Road, but Woodbury might say, sorry, no.
Correct.
Okay.
You just mentioned something too, Maggie, about not being able to choose our start time, because we're kind of at the mercy of the bus. So that might translate also to accounting for transition time. Because there's going to be, say, 20 minutes on this end and 20 on the other.
Right.
And if the bus company isn't willing to move either way by much, then we're going to have to account for that time.
Yep.
In terms of instructional time.
Yep,
So,
very true.
Yep, yep.
And there, just FYI, there's less, the state sets how many instructional minutes are required per grade level. Elementary has fewer minutes than high school does, so we would take that into consideration if we schedule. So you could take it off of that end of it, some of the instructional time, because there's less requirement.
But the busing would be for middle and high school, right?
For middle and high school, there's, so that would, if we stay together, then we'd have to look at that.
Yeah.
So
Are
I
there-
found the transportation statute that applies to us, it's 124E.15, and it links us and makes us responsible to comply with 123B. So at some point, we should, there's our transportation answer. I haven't clicked and read it and all that, but we should look at that, and that should help us answer and corroborate if that's what we're trying to do, is corroborate what Mr. Vetch has already found out for us.
If we're going to create a merger committee, would it be to investigate the idea of a merger, or would it be after we approve the merger?
Yeah, great question. I was going to go along those same lines. So let's just play that scenario out. If we said, as a board, just saying, it makes sense to explore this merger, and why is because we would get the building that supports our strategic plan. That would be the reason that we would do it, and then we would approach, because I mean, they have a fantastic building, why would they just give it to us, right? So what is it from their side that they would like? And I think in the past discussions, it's been our middle school and high school program, right? So it's a ticket in. I think one of the other things is, just real quick, sorry, is I think one of the questions that comes up a lot is, are we just now going to be an extension of WLA? And I think at least with the numbers, it looks like we would need 200, say for 6th grade. They could provide up to 100, right? So up to 100 kids have the option to come from WLA. They can still choose to go to a different high school like they currently have the choices. But they would, if we're under the same district, have an option to come in without a lottery. And then we would take in 100 kids from the population that we currently do. We currently take in 100 kids from the Crossing, all the other schools around, right? So I think you're right. It would be a discussion of, let's say we can't have more than 5. So let's say at max 4 of our board and at max maybe 4 of their board would sit down together with community members or however that wants to be structured, would have a discussion to start hashing out some of those things. Because I think I'm hearing busing is a question that a lot of times comes up, and we again have tonight.
Curriculum.
The curriculum and what implication that has. I mean, there's a lot of details, like, yeah, the mission, vision, all that stuff can, because I mean, right now, I think the proposal could be that we are under the same umbrella, but we operate almost the same way we currently do, right? All the culture that we currently have and the stuff that we do for middle and high school would stay. And is that the same as their understanding where they would be able to maintain their K through 5, as example? Would that stay? Or is there anything that we want to willingly merge together, right?
Well, and does it have to be day one? Is this something then, too, right? Like, just because we are doesn't mean day one, everything clicks. We are working on curriculum right now.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get everything really good. It's constantly changing and shifting, so.
At that point, it'd be the strategic plan.
Right, then it would be
Go
the
back to
strategic plan. So what
needs
does,
to change
yep.
here, there.
So,
Yeah.
right.
And I think the last one is, let's say the numbers are what they are, we can't change the interest rate, so we have 17 million. Maybe a gym is already 15 million, I don't know what that number is, right? Then WLA would rightfully say, where's the money to renovate this site? So I think there are some still, even if we as a board say it makes sense to explore this option further, it can come back in a month or two and with an update from that committee that says, we don't know how to get there from here, which might be tough for us because that's one of our last options, at least on paper right now. So yes, good question.
So what's the other option? We keep 2 options viable.
I think our 3 options are go back down to 250 or 550 and temporarily and hunker down until the environment changes. And I can tell from Maggie's body language she's not liking that. I'm not either. But it is. I'm gonna say if the other 2 options pan out, that's gonna be the option we're gonna have to stick with for a few years.
Cody, can I interject just quick? I don't mean to be rude, but I mean, if you think about it, what would we be going back to? Exactly what a merger is, because that is a building at 3% interest. We're not going to get 1% or 2%. Maybe at best we get 3 because they're going to, so at best we can get back to what we have in our hand right now as a potential building at 3% interest because $28 million are bonded at 3% with that scenario. So the waiting one is less appealing to me, one because of the students that we're holding back, not being able to allow them in. But, so I'm just, you can tell I'm not a clear advocate of that, just sitting.
So what's the next option?
So I'm saying merger as an option, that we don't know all the details yet, it needs to be further explored and vetted together with them. I don't see another one.
Could part of
I see
the
another
merger
one.
committee be to investigate
The
other
Hudson
merger
Road
options,
one.
just to cover base?
Hudson Road.
Sorry, the merger is to what?
Could the merger committee be
Well, I'm
part of their
4C.
mission, be
4C.
part of looking at
It would
other
require
options just to
splitting.
cover those bases?
Well, we have the expansion committee, so
And then we would
I guess
still
the only
be
reason that
just MSA.
we suggest is because they are a little bit different, aren't they? Like, maybe the skill set of the folks that signed up for expansion is different than the skill set we need to do a merger.
But I feel like we need to do our due diligence by exploring other merger options and say, this is off the table, we can't do that. We've looked at these numbers, we've approached this school, they're not gonna consider it. They're not in our current school district, even further.
So we could change the expansion committee to almost say, keep abreast, if you will, keep up to date on what options are out there, the buildings, or if the interest rate ticks to a certain spot, we could trigger something, right? I mean, we can modify the marching orders for the expansion committee if we want to.
Yeah.
We also need to talk about, what do we do with, we've hired a lot of agencies that are all anxious to do work for us, they want to do work for us, we're paying them, we're paying them, so.
Lots of mortgage. Can we, when you can, Dan, can you revisit us to 4C?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, Randy, you want to speak to
I
it,
thought there
or?
was a square footage issue, but maybe.
Grade
Is
six- split
split
campus.
site with 15,000 square feet finished. Is that the one you're talking about?
And we couldn't quite renovate as much space as we needed. I think this is the one where we would have to even have a slightly smaller size.
Right, so we currently have 52,000 square feet, with 600 kids, 10. That site would allow us to get a gym, a single gym, and 15,000 renovated square feet. The rest would be just clearing out empty cubicles and maybe using some cabinets as walls. And that's dipping into 400,000 into our general fund, so there's not going to be a lot of money to go beyond that.
And the challenge is we don't know when we'd be able to even put any more money into finishing more square footage. We're not, we're not putting much into there's not much surplus left over at the end of the year.
Sorry, I couldn't, you said that would require us to use our general fund money?
Yeah, that
It
requires our
would.
general fund,
For busing.
and for 40 years. We have to pull 400,000 a year, for 40 years out of our general fund.
And it looks like there's no green space, just to point that
We
out.
couldn't afford green space with that option, is that right? There is
We
actually
can't
physically,
even afford classrooms with
Yeah.
that option.
but I mean, there's physically space there, but we can't afford to modify it.
It's parking lot right now.
It would stay a parking lot with option C.
And there's still businesses in there renting until their lease is up.
And it is a split site, so we would do the 9 through 12, different than the 6, 7, 8. But
I
it
mean,
is the-
it's, if we want to go for this wait and see, that option might be viable because we've got our foot in the door, and then when the conditions turn in our favor, we can then leverage that, but again, it's a wait and see. And
We just need our general fund
We
for
have to
that.
remember back when Nixon, one of the funds before we've engaged, 5-6% is a good interest rate, which is about what we could, right in the range of 6% is about what we could get. 3% is extremely unlikely to ever come back. That's not coming back. And we currently, in order to up our amount of money, need to have our lease aid go up. We are unlikely in the next 4 years to have a governor who wants to up our lease aid. They're really not pro charter schools. Charter schools are the only ones that get lease aid. So we're unlikely to, in the next 4 years, get any more lease aid. So, and we're unlikely to get the interest rates to go more down, more than a percent or two, or a percent maybe, which doesn't give us enough money to really change our options. And if we do that, we're stuck in that bonding for 5 years before we can refinance.
yeah, we'd be stuck. If the conditions don't turn around, now we're stuck in a bad situation too.
Can we consider like narrowing our options at this meeting? Because I think if we narrow our options right now, then we'll have like enough time until the next board meeting to like really prepare with like the right information that we need for like the narrowed down options.
Yeah, good idea. Any proposals?
And I also think that like most of us have like kind of made up our minds on like what we want and like what we don't want. So instead of waiting, it's like better to get it done.
Yeah, one of the ideas was to kind of get us to a consensus, if you will, and then put that out for public feedback, right? So if anything, gather that. The proposal right now that's in the presentation as it comes to the board chair. So if we went down that path, the idea would be emails would come to the board chair file. I would actually just take them. I wouldn't edit them or whatever. It would just be like this, and then we pass it out to all you guys would read them. Names, dates, what they said. You guys get a chance to read through all the different comments. Maybe there's something we're missing. Somebody has some information they want to share.
Amanda, can you go to the last slide, just so our parents will see?
That was a proposal, submit to the board chair.
So.
We could also do a survey.
I mean, a survey is a good idea, but we also have to consider, we didn't do anything with the last results. I don't think it impacted anything, we didn't discuss them. I'd be frustrated in saying, hey, I commented on this and it apparently had absolutely no impact on the board.
Well,
And we have to change that. I don't know what that means. I mean, somehow, you know, people are not feeling
I would
engaged.
disagree. I
Pardon
read
me?
that.
I don't think you can speak for the whole board because I was definitely impacted by that survey on a personal level.
That's why I
So what
think
do
we
we
have to
do
be,
with that,
we have
is
to
what
be
I'm
careful.
saying. So, and that's great, then we have to kind of reflect that, so people don't have the feeling that it went nowhere.
I think it was reflected because we gave them options on exactly what they were talking about. Because I, like Teresa, I sat down and I read through all of them, and I took to heart what was said, and I'm not making a rash decision by saying, number 5 is our options, let's go. Everyone be quiet, let's do this. I want to know what our options are, and if we miss something, I want to hear from the community again, because we're at that point now. I do feel that we do need to start a merger committee so that we can look into these questions and find out the data and the research and what we're doing in order to make this a successful merge, if that is our option. But I have been listening to the community and the stakeholders.
And I'm not saying no one has listened, but our stakeholders see no reflection of that. So we have to make sure that people are heard, and it's kind of nice to actually share with everyone what was said, because the way we're handling it now, for a good reason, but people are saying, I don't even know what other people have said. So we're kind of building silos of information, and people are not thinking they are part of the process. Another part of merger is we should consider, so merger is a mechanism for doing what we want to accomplish. And we also should take a view and better understand that there are a number of ways of actually completing what we're talking about with WLA without a merger. Now, they have requested, and I guess Randy has said, they don't want to do it unless it is a merger. That is their choice. But we have to better understand that not all this is only because, the merger is only because that's the only way to accomplish this. We just don't have an understanding of it. And then finally, on the whole financing, I just want to make sure we get a good view, and I'd actually like to see this in writing too from our underwriter. If we bond another 15 on top of 28, I gotta believe that investors will see that as a greater risk, and I don't think that's as easy as saying, oh yeah, we'll just take another 15 because our lease aid can support that. They're now looking at a total of almost 40 million in bonds from one, group, us. And I'm not sure if there's an impact, but there might be, because we would be seen as a higher risk. That's a lot of money for one school to take on, 40 million.
Jeff, can I ask you to go back to that point of what's not being heard? Because I think a statement like that can actually do more harm.
What's
than
not
it
being
can any
heard, a
good.
lot
So
of
I
people are
wanna
asking
hear.
us, why are we doing this? Because there is no strategic fit.
Okay.
And we don't have a meeting to talk about strategy. So
Okay.
it looks like they're not being heard.
But Dan's made it clear at the last board meeting, our intent for expansion. That was clearly stated to the community, so I don't understand what's not being heard.
We're not being heard because people are saying they don't see the strategic fit, and we don't have that conversation.
Okay, so in the expansion committee, can you put that together for us for our next meeting?
No, not in 2 weeks. It's a lot of research.
Start.
Do you think?
Well, I've asked people to start, so now it's me. I mean, people are just hearing it because you don't want to do it, so now it's expansion committee. Jeff, why don't you do it? Because we're not going to answer that. That's what it feels like. Is that, I mean, would you like to help? I'd love to help.
I would love to, but we're in the midst of concert season.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And I have a full-time job, so, exactly.
Jennifer, yes?
Well, I was just going to say it would be better if we, instead of just open-ended comments, ask for more measurable responses. Like, what do
Yeah,
you
it's
think
great.
they want to?
It's a great question, and I've thought through it, and I don't have the right answer. Let's talk about it quick. So, I struggle with this is not a popularity contest, and I say that, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's going to be extremely hard to be on the outside. Like Jeff has said in so many meetings, I have almost daily, Randy, you too. So we're kind of pulling from stuff that it's impossible to get all that information out. And that's not the public's fault, and you could say it's not ours, although I'll own whatever I own, right? That we don't share out. But reacting to, say, merger, you say merger, and then people will have a different response based on what that merger means to them. And what we're talking about now, I think we need to be clear to the community and saying, we're exploring a merger because we want their building. And I don't mean to be mean about it, but that's what we want. We don't want their curriculum, we don't want to wear uniforms, we don't want to go down into logos and all this stuff. We need a bigger building, and we don't know how to afford it unless we can go back in time to a 3% interest rate, which they happen to have, and a beautiful facility, right? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mind, but I mean, it's a nice place. They've done a great job with it, and they should be proud of that. So I guess if we were to say, just as an example, community, we're exploring a merger because we need a building to fulfill our strategic plan that we can't afford right now with the current conditions. They have one. And that means what? We don't know yet, but please provide some comments. We're suggesting that we're going to set up a merger committee because we have a busing question. We have a bunch of other like debt questions. Can we afford to? So there's dozens of questions that we haven't even thought of yet that I think a merger committee can play out over the next few months. So I think they could react to that. I think we've already got some reactions, but they don't have in our mind what a merger meant, and the merger has changed over the past month or two from what we first came up with, right? So I mean, we're evolving the scenario. WLA has a chance to respond. Mergers are weird, right? I mean, we both have to get something out of it, otherwise why are we doing it? So they need to feel that they're getting a fair share as well.
So we have a recording of that. I like that, right? I mean, you make a statement and we ask them to respond to that one statement rather than an open-ended question. I mean, we can leave one so they can give an open-ended question, but responding to exactly what you just said, that would be great.
What do you think was explicit here? Names will be attached and shared publicly, because I think one of the things we didn't do a real good job last time is let people know that their names would be shared. So we made the decision to paraphrase and made a summary, right, to protect people's comments. But I would rather be 100% open and say, Susie or Joe or whoever emailed this. This is what they emailed, and here's the summary. We can share it with the board like we did last time, but if we're explicit in saying your name will be attached to your comments, then I feel like that's also fair. People can share comment. If they don't like that, they can send me a separate note and say, please don't share my name. I have this concern.
And it's like an open forum, right?
Yeah.
You come here, people know who's saying the comment.
But not everyone's comfortable to come and speak, so this way they can send an email. But I think it's not fair to not put your name, because otherwise, I don't know. I feel like this puts a little bit of a professionalism to it. So it's like my name is attached to it, so I'm going to make my comments constructive. You know?
Right.
Well, if there's a very valid point made and people have further questions or want more information, they know who to go to.
Yeah.
We know who to go to. Like,
so, and this suggestion was December 16th. So the email that I'd sent out, I think I put the 19th. Technically, our meeting is on the 19th, so probably the 16th is a better answer.
I
Gives
might
us
want to put something
a
together,
weekend,
right?
a weekend to read it, because I don't know how many pages we'll get, but I'm assuming it'll be more than one.
So do you think you should end it Thursday?
To keep
So
the time.
well, and we get it Friday, you know, then my whole weekend is reading the you know what I mean? Like maybe
So,
we
like,
should have,
Thursday at midnight?
maybe, and then we have Friday day to read the comments.
It's still a lot of time. It's 10 days
Because, you know,
from the
Christmas is
6th to the 6th
Yeah.
to the 15th.
And that's
Friday night,
Oh,
that
plan.
Friday
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
So to paraphrase, I don't know, did anyone write down what I said?
I know.
You might have to listen to the recording.
It's recorded.
But, and the other thing I would say is then, is there anyone interested in serving on merger committee?
I would say I would, yeah, I would have
So
nominated.
this is fantastic. We have more than we have available, so.
I think we should open it up to non-board members.
Yeah, 100%, agreed.
yes.
Yep, but I'm just saying from ours, we were limiting to 4. So maybe what you could do is, maybe, can you guys just email me, or do you want to decide tonight who does or doesn't?
I would say that we establish the committee at the open forum meeting.
Okay, yeah,
Establish a chair, give it a charge. We've got a lot coming.
let's do it.
yeah.
Anyone interested in chairing? Maggie would like to chair.
I'd love that.
Okay, then Maggie, I will defer to you to set up your committee.
Okay. So,
And we have to vote on it, but we're sure.
okay, so, we can have how many board members?
4, because we have 9.
So
we
3
can't have
more,
5.
and then any parents, I would like some, lots of stakeholders, I'd like students if possible too. I think that's important.
I think, to be fair, I think this would be our proposal to WLA, because, right,
Okay.
we're saying we would like to
Oh, and
organize
yes, WLA.
so WLA would please give us some representatives to sit down on a merger committee.
Yes, definitely.
So are you
How many, like,
suggesting
you
that
said-
we meet together? I mean, I think that's something that might be separate for us first.
We could
before-
have
Like
a
just
separate
a,
meeting
like
first.
like,
Yeah, I mean,
like
we
an,
need to
like
kind of
an
establish
MS, a
what
smaller
we think.
MSA group, and then, but even that smaller group could create another, like a WLA
Right, right.
with
and
merger group
Kind of
under
in
it.
steps. And
Yeah.
I just think we need to, within our own group, have a clear understanding of, those issues and whatever before you get in with a conversation with,
Determine what it is we
right,
need to know,
need to know
and what we want. Yeah.
Randy would have to reach out to WLA and tell them, form this committee, and then separately have our meetings, and then decide on a date
Yeah.
to have a group meeting.
Yeah.
down
Yep.
there.
Yes,
Yes.
I think so.
And then report back to the board.
Ms. Berga, you
Yes.
said you were interested in like having students on this?
I think so,
How many students would you want?
I don't know yet, but I think that's a good
So
question.
how many people do you want on the
Well,
committee?
I don't know that it matters how many
I
students
think
at
at
first.
the first meeting, we need to establish some ground rules and
Yeah.
everything, but then open it up to the second
And
meeting.
then, yeah,
You're an individual, you're interested.
Yeah, and I know
Just
students
right,
would.
to be honest, if you want to start
What?
with Noah, we can pull from
yeah,
there.
but like, because you're interested, right?
Yeah, and I know like
So,
there's a lot of students
but
who are like super vocal and.
right, but like even if that first meeting, you for sure, and maybe one other student just
Yeah.
to start,
Keep
and
it
then figure
small so
out,
we can do something
and then
and
in
stuff.
that first meeting determine numbers, I think would be good for students.
Cool.
Does that sound good? Okay.
so is it a committee of the board then?
Yeah, I think it should be. I think we should
Subject to
vote.
open meeting law?
Yeah.
Yep.
We should keep notes, or
Good catch.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
And
so
not a
then,
what do we call those subcommittees? This is a
Yeah,
proper
that gets
committee.
complicated.
No, I think we'll just leave it at that.
so then, do we want to establish the other board members on that too today? Is that what you're thinking?
I heard DJ Wendell.
Well, I know, but you were, I know, but I was, and that's fine. So I didn't see other hands. Sorry, I was typing 1, 2, 3.
It would be,
think DJ
just a suggestion, it might be
No.
nice to have a parent board member, teacher board member. What do you think? In a community? I don't know.
Or a parent, not necessarily a board member.
Yeah, fair, that's fair.
Because we're running out of parent board members.
We are.
From a standpoint of my department, I think
Yes.
there's an area that really needs to be looked at and addressed. So I would
Okay.
really like to be a part of those discussions to be able to ask some of those questions.
Definitely. So right now, teachers. Noah, well, ask for other
Hannah,
parents.
did you raise your hand?
And why don't you come back
Yes,
with
okay.
the list, because we said we really weren't going to have any votes now, so we can vote at the next meeting
Yep.
after we know names and everything else.
Yeah, I did add a decision point if we needed to. We want to make some motion.
Do we need to vote to create the committee? I mean,
I think it gives
that's
it
a
more power.
decision.
Yes,
Right?
I would say.
I would say if we were to first and second that, and we have formed a committee officially,
Yeah.
I think that's a good decision.
Yeah.
I think, Dan, you're going to count as a board member. Don't you
On
have
what?
to be
Oh.
on the committee as the chair of our board?
She's the vice chair.
I don't know
You don't
that,
have to chair it, but don't you have to be a member of the committee?
No,
each
not a member of the finance committee.
yeah.
Would we run into a problem if there's four teacher board members? And were to come to the meeting, then that would.
One of us would have to not be
One
there.
either have to not be there or they're actually.
Right, and if I come, if I'm not one of the members and I come to represent the finance committee,
One of us would have to not be
Yeah.
there.
or then we make it a whole board meeting. And then it's,
I agree with Jeff's point. It doesn't mean as a parent, right? I mean, we can have other parents, we can have a dozen parents, right? But for me sitting on it, then I would have to kick one of the teachers on. And I would love to be on it, but I also am okay not if you guys.
Actually, given all the kind of the issues and how we're running this, it's probably better that you're not on it.
well, I don't know.
Just
if I-
because, from a,
Do we have to decide all this
universal piece.
tonight, or can we decide it at the January 19th meeting?
I think making the committee is nice, having the, I mean, the other thing we could do is, if we, like I travel a fair bit, I could just say, I can't even make that one anyways, you four take it. Maybe we just keep it fluid. What do you think of that? We can't, I think the official rule is we can't have 5 at a meeting.
Right.
But we can maybe have 5 on the list of names available to attend.
well, you'd have to be careful because you're going to interact by email. So you're already
That's
gonna be
true.
copying and
That's
everything,
true,
or
yeah.
not even copying, you're gonna be on everything.
That's true.
Right.
Hello, is that from a policy that you read through?
Some of the policies require us that I sit on some, right? But I think it was specific to the committee, if I remember.
To governance, and that's because we established it
Yes,
to be that way.
Yeah.
yes. So I think this is a new one, so we can make our rules. I believe.
Because you don't sit on the finance committee.
I do not.
The chair hasn't been on every committee we've ever had, because that would just be redundant.
Impossible.
That's possible.
We have 3 teachers here, though, 3 board members, that we don't have to do 4 members. We could just do 3 board members, and then you could open it up to parents.
Well,
Because
but we
these
could-
will be the voting members of your committee.
Well, and one concern then is all the members of this committee that are teachers are board members.
Well, and we can open it up to other teachers.
No,
We
I
can
understand,
open it
but
up to-
right off the bat,
Sure.
it's board members, so.
That's
Yeah, but
true.
we have to change our thinking in that way. This was an issue with the bylaws as well. We need to get our minds to a point where we don't think teacher X can't be a treasurer because she
No,
lost
actually,
salary.
that's not my concern. My concern is I don't want other teachers not feeling free to participate because they see all the other ones. It seems like the committee is run by 4 teacher board members.
But they could join the committee.
No, I
They could
understand
apply to
that.
join
Once again, it's
and
just that
be
people might
voting
not want to
members.
join when they see.
Jeff,
4
I'd like
teacher
to
board
hear what Heather has to say.
Oh, sorry.
You kind of interrupted.
Well, like I was reaching out to teachers to get them to join governance committee, and they could join and be officially join and be a voting member. And officially joining just means that you commit to attending, having decent attendance at the meetings, giving your input is the big thing, and reading through the documentation. So if you just open it up to other teachers, there's no limit to how many teachers you can have. You can set those parameters, how many parents. I mean, it's a committee. Committees are awesome because you can have that robust participation, and it just it will bring our board a step closer to be able to make good informed decisions. Because so much will be vetted out for us by this rounding of stakeholders.
So where are we at here? We have 4 or 5?
Right now, it's, well, no, but then the 4.
But the board members.
The board members, 4.
Okay.
Yep.
So would we be okay to, I can make, if you guys are okay with finish the discussion, we move to decision. If I make a motion that we charge a new committee under the board supervision as a merger committee with Maggie chairing and additional 3 other members from the board, open to the public to explore the possibility of merging together with WLA in order to support our strategic vision for the school. And report back to the board as quickly as possible. But I mean, have your meetings and find out what it is we don't know. Is that, can I get a second on that?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Wendell. Any further discussion?
I still am a little confused by why Jeff thinks that other teachers wouldn't want to be on this committee if we teachers are on it. I don't understand that.
I'm just
We have the
suggesting,
best, we have the school at our hearts.
no,
So I don't understand what it is.
let me just
that
retract
other
it because
teachers-
everyone's misconstruing what I said.
Well, I
So
would
I'll
like
just
to
take it
understand-
back because it's hard to explain. It's just a matter of perspective of, I don't want people to misunderstand that it looks like when we have a board committee that, someone might think that they have nothing additional to add when we have all 4 teachers from the board also in that committee. You don't have to agree with that, I'm just suggesting that,
I don't
that's all.
agree or disagree.
Then-
I don't understand
Yep.
what it is that they would be afraid of. I mean, I don't understand.
Could
I'm
we
not
take
saying
it
they're
at,
gonna be afraid
for
of it.
tonight? Maggie, solicit feedback. I think governance is a tough one, to try to pull people in to read policies, so I get it. But this one with merger, I have a feeling we're gonna have people coming from all over helping Maggie out. Yeah, and so I think, let's take that one then, because I'm hoping teachers will show up and parents, I'm guaranteeing will. And so let's report back if you're unable to get other people to come in. Does that work?
Could we ask community members if they're interested to respond to this
Yeah, sure.
question, comments, if they're interested on being part of the merger committee? So that way we can start collecting names and then Maggie can reach out when a meeting has been established.
And I also asked, sorry, this is a build for the discussion on the motion, but I asked that we send out this PowerPoint to the public. I don't see any reason why we cannot. Is that fair?
Sure.
So we'll have the notes, which Maggie's helped with. We'll send out the PowerPoint, which has the
We can
detail.
attach it?
Green, yeah, attach it to the notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
And is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
So I mean, this is what we talked about tonight, so you don't have to watch it on YouTube.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
And everyone's okay with, so far, the board chair and emails? I will compile those.
So I'm going to say at 11:59 PM on the 15th.
That's fine by me. I love it. Okay, so I originally had a motion seconded by Wendell. Are you okay with that motion to go to the vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, that motion passes. So I guess for the community out at the night session, thanks for all the discussion, everyone, good discussion. We are setting up a merger committee, which will need to answer some of the questions that we still have as a board, but looking forward to it. It's an exciting time for us, so. I would like to make a motion to then, I mean, plus or minus, just real quick, I would just say I was optimistic on the time. Apologies for that, by about an hour. You guys can help me with that next time you see my quick timings. But anything else?
Minus, it's still cold in here,
Still
so
cold.
I don't know if,
Okay.
I don't want to pick on Wendell, but I don't know if we might need another room.
I think
It's gonna be cold.
your building, we need like a designated, like a boardroom made for the board.
That would be awesome if we could do
With
that.
good heat.
Good heating and good
And
cooling in
good
the
cooling in
summer.
the summer.
Little fireplace underneath.
Got a fireplace? Okay. Put that on the wish list. So then I'm going to make a motion to close the meeting at 7:28.
Second.
Seconded by DJ. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much, everyone.